With all the things going on in Elbath, the Lokis, the God Knights, the nightmares and whatnot, never did I ever imagine the most impressive moment of this entire arc would be an act of bravery by one little girl. I legit teared up every time I read her speech during the chapter. Hell, I'm tearing up a bit right now just thinking back on it. This chapter opens up with Rona already being separated from the rest of the children, forced to walk along one of Gunko's arrows until she's standing at the edge of it, hovering over a drop straight down to the underworld. It's basically like a pirate forcing someone to walk the plank, just instead of a ship, it's a tree, and instead of a plank, it's an arrow. And what the God Knights are doing here is that they are picking one of the kids to use as an example for the rest of the giants. It's either they obey their commands, or one by one, they'll send the kids falling to their deaths. And make no mistake, this fall will kill them regardless of the fact that they're giants. We saw just a few chapters ago that Haruden almost got his crew killed by pulling a Luffy, and instead of finding a safe way to travel down to the underworld, just got in a ship and jumped, only being saved at the very last minute by Luffy using his body to cushion their fall. And even then, they still got pretty badly hurt, so this fall would without a doubt be the end of each of these kids. What makes things worse is that the kid they chose is probably the most innocent one of the bunch, and I don't mean that any of the other kids deserved more to be put in this situation, just that out of all of them, Rona seemed to be not only the youngest, or at the very least the smallest of the kids, but also she had the most optimistic personality out of all of them, believing that no matter what happens, everything would work out for them in the end. And it was that exact personality that made her the one I'm most connected to in the last chapter. Honestly, I thought given that Olivia was Jarul's granddaughter, or great, I think I might throw in too many greats there, but you get the point, that she would be the one first up on the chopping block. Given that the God Knights knew so much about the Giants already, I figured they knew who she was, and I mean, what better way to force Jarul's hand than to use his own family? And you know what? He might just have jumped the moment they said to if they had. But they chose Ronya instead, which, while it might sound a bit harsh to say, it did let Jarul hesitate on making his choice. And look, I understand exactly why this is such a hard decision for him to make. It's not as simple as just burning down some buildings. If it was, then no question, he would do it in a heartbeat, because at the end of the day, both could just be rebuilt once this whole thing is over. The problem is what burning both the school and library down represent to the people of Elbath. Burning down the school is the exact same as rejecting the late King Carol's dream. He wanted to give the future generations more opportunities in life than their parents had, and to let his people and island thrive by opening up trade and relations with other nations, so that being warriors wouldn't be all they know. While burning down the library would not only mean destroying all of the books that Saul had saved and brought over from Ohara, but also completely erasing their history from the world. And that right there is exactly what Sommer wants. His goal is to completely make them bend the knee to the World Gov, cutting off any hope they have for the future and erase any connection they have to their past, so that they can become the ultimate army of warriors and help them tip the scales of war in their favor. In Sommer's speech in this chapter, where he says, well, basically that, it's just giving me some major Saturn vibes. He seems to be trying to push them to the breaking point the same way Saturn tried to do with Kuma, which might hint at some kind of connection between the two. Maybe Saturn was to Sommer's what Shanks is to Luffy, someone he idolized and wanted to be like. You know, now that I think about it, it actually would be kind of funny to find out that Sommer's is a Saturn fanboy. Or I guess I should say was a Saturn fanboy, considering the former elder has been promptly fired from his job and is now doing his best Brook impression. It also feels like this is Sommer's own personal goal, a way for him to simply add some excitement to this game of theirs, because before it might have been a bit too boring for his liking. And the reason why I feel that way is because I personally think that had Shamrock stayed in charge of this mission, he would have settled for the Island of Giants simply swearing allegiance to the World Gov, maybe taking these 10 kids with them as collateral to make sure Elbath stays the course. I don't honestly think the World Gov would really care too much about whether or not the Giants have a school, and only really care about getting rid of the library if they knew the books from Ohara were stashed aside. But Sommers is taking things this far because he wants to. He wants to see the Giants agonize over this choice. Whether they do what he says or let the kids die one by one, either way, it adds some excitement for him. Lucky for him, things are about to really heat up once Robin jumps in, going on full assault, launching a surprise attack against the God Knight, starting off by creating a giant arm and using it to palm him in the face. Then she pulls out an old favorite, immediately going for a Quattro Mono Clutch, breaking Sommer's back. And you can really feel the crunch in his spine in that panel. It's honestly pretty satisfying to watch. But Robin knows that the job's not finished just yet, and as Sommers continues counting down the time limit he gave Yarl, she runs up to grab him and immediately sends the two of them off the edge, falling into the underworld. Now Robin, because she knows from Saul that the God Knights are basically immortal, knows that this fall won't actually kill Sommers, but She does think that if she can get him far enough away, his thorns will fade away from the kids due to him being out of range, which admittedly is a pretty smart plan. Going into this chapter, I was really worried about what Robin could actually do to try and stop Sommers without almost getting herself killed, and yeah, this was probably her best option. Oh, should probably mention that the Robin that took a nosedive with Sommers is actually a clone. The real one was back on the branch trying to free the rest of the crew, which I think we all kind of figured out even before Sommers filled her with holes. It was either that or one of the monster trio would have saved her at the very last second from falling, because there was no way Oda was killing her off right here. Actually, now that I think about it, it probably would have been a good idea to have Luffy or Zoro here to see what happens at the very end of this chapter, but it looks like we're still trying to keep them out of the conflict. And speaking of staying out of conflict, Chopper doesn't get much screen time in this chapter. Robin told him to stay behind with Saul, and at first I wasn't exactly sure why she wouldn't bring him with her, but after seeing what her plan was, she was likely thinking that once the thorns are gone, the Chopper could patch Saul up. Which again, pretty smart plan on her part, though things don't end up working out that way because Sommers was able to stop himself from falling by connecting a thorn rope between himself and the tree. Continuing the countdown, now with only 10 seconds left, and this is when we get to the part of the chapter that nearly broke me. Because in order to put more stress on Yarl, Sommers has Gunko broadcast Rauna's voice across the island. He was expecting her to scream out in fear, but instead we got one hell of a bittersweet monologue. Master Yarl, I go to school, I have lots of friends there, and I love the library too, because the books teach us so much about the world. And the teachers taught me that we shouldn't bother people and that we shouldn't do things they don't like. If the library and school have to disappear so I can survive, I think that will bother everybody. That's why it's better if I fall. Master Yarl, don't worry about me. I've always been lucky. It's gonna be okay. Seriously, every time. This little girl just stole the entire arc. I don't care what happens for the rest of this. Shanks could show up and have the best fight we've ever seen in One Piece with Shamrock. This will still be my absolute favorite moment in the entirety of Elbaf, because nothing is going to hit me as hard as this right here did. Well, I mean, nothing short of one of the Straw Hats dying, and that's not very likely to happen, so yeah, this moment's not getting topped. Now, despite Rona's willingness to sacrifice herself, Jarl does give in at the very last second, telling Anj to burn down the school and library. Actually, Sommers did say one right before Jarl made his choice, so technically he did kind of miss the time limit, which Sommers likely would have used as an excuse to have Rona jump anyway. In fact, I'm pretty sure even if Jarl would have gave in right away, he still would have made her jump just for the fun of it. And he was definitely planning to have some fun by slowly killing Robin here at the end of the chapter, but before he can hit her with the giant thorn bat he made, his hand gets lopped off and doesn't end up healing back. And at the chapter ends, we see Sommers full of fear as he realizes Scapper Gaban has showed up, and the left hand of the former Pirate King lands one more slash across the God Knight's chest, no longer laughing, ready to save the kids. And this right here is the moment we've been waiting for from him. We're finally going to get to see him in action in a serious fight, and based on the way this ended, it's pretty easy to say who's going to win. Honestly, the only hope Sommers has of winning this is if Gunko or Killingham come to back him up. Otherwise, I don't see how Scapper loses this fight at all. And even if he does, thanks to him, we now know that there is a way to shut off the God Knight's healing. We just need to figure out how. The likely answer is using Conqueror's Haki, which I guess is confirmation that Gaban has it. And if you look at the final page of the chapter, there is a small spark of what looks like lightning coming off of where he cut Sommers. So that could be Oda showing us that he's using it here, but it's kind of hard to tell. But I mean, based on how we saw the Gorosei losing their abilities after that explosion of Conqueror's Haki, and assuming the God Knights have abilities similar to theirs, this is pretty much the only option of what it could be. Which means before this arc is over, Scapper will have to teach Luffy and Zoro how to use their Haki to take down immortals. But even more importantly, this does bring up the age-old question. Seeing as he is meant to parallel our favorite cook's position on the crew, is this meant as a hint from Oda that Sanji will also unlock Conqueror's Haki?